Is it finally getting too problematic to live in Los Angeles? Well, we're going to look at 10 reasons why LA can be awful in this video. Now, don't get me wrong. I've lived in the greater LA area all my life, and even though I'm a citizen of both America and Australia, I've worked on projects across the United States, around the world, I still live here. And as bad as things can be, there are so many positives that it really isn't all that easy to leave. Still, whether you live here now and you need that little last push to decide if you want to sell and get out, or you live somewhere else and you wonder why so many Californians keep moving into your area and messing up your property values, keep watching and stay through to the end, because I'm going to talk about some of the good things too, so you have an idea of why we keep staying. By the way, I'm Victor Curry, a licensed real estate agent here with the Unvert Group at Douglas Elliman Real Estate. And if you are thinking about selling to get out of California, or you're just moving around in California, if you're upsizing, downsizing, whatever, or if you are looking to buy something here and you need an expert to guide you through the wild world of modern real estate, because everything's changed recently, feel free to reach out and see if we're a good fit to work together. So let's get to the countdown. Number 1, traffic congestion. LA's traffic is famous for being some of the worst in the world. I've driven in some pretty bad places in other countries too. But our design of the city, it sprawls across just basically endless miles of freeway. And to get around to all the neighborhoods, you're always on the road. And basically, the design of it has created this, someone would say, a perfect storm of congestion. And it's going to be bad. Commutes that should take 20 minutes easily stretch into hour-long ordeals, especially during rush hours, which here are about 3 hours long in the morning and pretty much the same in the afternoon. It's not just about sitting in traffic either. Traffic jams are mostly unpredictable, with accidents, construction, and even bad weather quickly turning a normal drive into a major delay. A little side note on that. People who move here from climates that actually have heavy weather often don't realize that the roads get slipperier in a light rain or drizzle because of the oil that builds up on the asphalt during the dry week. So slow down a bit. I'm sure you can drive in the snow, but this is less about the water than it is about the oil. All this traffic can have a huge impact on your quality of life, and people who live here basically plan their days around traffic patterns. And often it feels like much of our personal time and productivity is simply spent to get from point A to point B. The stress of daily gridlock contributes to road rage, frustration, and a general sense of weariness for drivers who have to face it regularly. Number 2, the high cost of living. Los Angeles is one of the most expensive places to live in the United States. Housing costs in particular are astronomical. Whether you're looking to rent or buy, the prices can be prohibitive. Median house prices are well over $900,000 in Los Angeles County, and well over $1 million, actually closer to $1.8 million in Orange County. And even renting a small apartment around here is going to cost you at least $3,000 a month in most of the desirable areas. But it doesn't stop at housing. Groceries, utilities, healthcare, and everyday expenses are all way above the national average. And this makes it difficult for many middle-income earners to get ahead financially. People moving to LA may be lured in by the opportunities, but they quickly find out that the cost of living is significantly eaten into any potential earnings. Financial stress is a real concern, and don't even get me started on the various local and state taxes. There's a whole video in that one. Number 3. Housing crisis and homelessness. LA's housing crisis has been a reality for a long time, and it's gotten a lot worse. In fact, we were something like 400,000 units short before the pandemic, and it's only gotten worse. People tended to ignore the issues when it was more rare to see outside the Skid Row area and downtown, and as the opioid crisis has worsened, it's only become more visible and heartbreaking. As housing costs keep rising, many people are unable to afford even basic minimal rent, and the city and state agencies that are responsible to deal with the problem haven't even slightly kept up or found workable solutions. This, of course, has led to tens of thousands of people living on the streets and in their cars or in temporary shelters. Tent encampments are a common sight in certain parts of the city, and while most residents feel empathy for what the homeless are going through, the crisis has brought significant challenges to everyday life. Residents feel uneasy about public safety in areas where homeless populations have increased dramatically. Beyond personal discomfort, the presence of so many unhoused people also reflects a larger systemic value, and a lack of affordable housing and inadequate mental health services and not enough job opportunities all make it hard to see where there's a clear solution. For people thinking about moving to LA, the homeless issue can be quite a visual shock and a pretty bad sign about the local area's socioeconomic issues. Number 4, air quality. Los Angeles has long been famous for its smog, and while air quality has improved over the years, it's still a big problem. The combination of vehicle emissions and industrial pollutants and geographic factors that trap the air in between the oceans and the mountains and all that stuff means the air quality can fluctuate from day to day. And on particularly bad days, air pollution levels can pose serious health risks, especially for children, the elderly, people with asthma or other respiratory issues. And of course, respiratory issues are being worsened post-pandemic. Living in LA means accepting that some days the air quality will be poor enough to limit outdoor activities. When I was a kid in the 60s and 70s, we regularly had smog alerts, and we were kept inside during the school days. And you watched old movies and played head down, thumbs up, and the other games that kids do, so the teachers have something to fill the time. And it was a weird thing to do that, but it was just too nasty to go outside. It's better today, but we still get those occasional alerts that come through on our phone and warn us that it's unhealthy to be outside. And if you're from an area with clean air, it's something of an adjustment. Number 5, urban sprawl. One of the defining features of Los Angeles is its vast decentralized layout. And unlike cities with a specifically defined dense urban core, LA sprawls out across hundreds of square miles, with neighborhoods spread out far from one another. That sprawl can make the city feel disjointed, with each of the neighborhoods operating almost like its own small city. And each of those individual neighborhoods around the county have their own personality. So for residents, this means day-to-day driving and going significant distances just to accomplish basic tasks, whether it's commuting to work or picking up groceries, and especially meeting up with friends. When people talk about the jokes for dating is for geographic desirability, well, it becomes the same thing for your friends. And when somebody moves, your social circles end up shifting. It's a tough thing to get used to around here because it's so hard to get from one side of the town to the other. The same urban sprawl puts a lot of strain on public services like police and fire departments and public transportation, because the limited resources that we have to cover this huge geographic area. Now, for newcomers, the size of LA can really feel overwhelming. What looks like a short drive on a map can easily take an hour or two or more, and it makes the city feel less accessible than one might initially expect when they first just arrive and look at the map. Number 6, public transit limitations. While Los Angeles keeps spending money to expand the metro, trains, and bus systems, public transportation in LA really does leave a lot to be desired. The layout of the city, combined with the deeply ingrained car culture, makes relying solely on public transportation a major challenge. It's very frustrating when you think about it, because we actually had one of the best public transit systems in the world all the way up until the 1950s, and we let that go. That was a big mistake. Now, for one problem, the metro system doesn't cover large portions of the city, meaning that many neighborhoods aren't accessible without a car. Buses can be slow and unpredictable and overcrowded. Plus, they're caught in the same traffic jams as the cars without the option to take a side street. For people who are used to cities like New York, where public transit is a way of life, LA's system can feel sadly inadequate. And many residents end up feeling forced into owning a car despite the cost of gas and insurance and parking. For someone moving to LA with the hopes of using public transit, the realization that it doesn't work like it does in other cities can be a big disappointment. For example, over on the West San Fernando Valley and you want to get to West LA, if you try to do it without a car, it's almost impossible. If you want to take the train, there's an express bus that goes across from Chatsworth and Woodland Hills and those areas across the valley. You take that to North Hollywood. You take from there the Red Line to Union Station in downtown LA, and then you would have to then get onto 2 different trains in order to get out to the west side of LA or down towards Redondo Beach and those areas. Those are all different train lines, but it takes you forever. You'd be talking about several hours, where you can do it in half an hour, non-rush hour time in a car. Number 7, crime rates in certain areas. Los Angeles, like most large cities, has areas with higher crime, and that can be a source of anxiety for residents. And while many neighborhoods can be relatively safe, crime is unevenly distributed across the city, and some neighborhoods experience higher levels of crime and property theft and gang activity. If you're thinking of moving to LA, researching crime statistics becomes an important part of choosing a neighborhood. And that can be kind of stressful and a little disheartening when you're trying to figure out where you're going to go. Even with so-called safe areas, there is often a concern about property crime, like car break-ins, and package theft is a huge one where we are right now. Our old neighborhood in Newport Beach had a big problem going on for a while, a few years back, with daytime burglaries. So no matter where you go, you have to be aware and you have to think about it. One thing, too, is it's important to do your own research on this one and look up the stuff yourself. There are legal limitations to what agents are allowed to say about certain things like crime statistics and schools. So we will always direct you to talk to the police, talk to the school district, check out things online at the various sites. So it's important to do the research yourself on these things. Number 8, wildfires. Wildfires have become a more consistent threat in Southern California, with LA County often at risk during the hot and dry summer and fall months. For people living in areas near the mountains or out in the wilderness spots, the danger of evacuation is very real and happens all the time. And each year, wildfires force residents to end up leaving their homes, sometimes with very little notice, and the fires themselves can cause massive property damage. Even for those living farther from the fire-prone areas, the smoke from the wildfires can impact the entire region, causing poor air quality and kind of making a sense of dread about how unpredictable and destructive the fires can be. It's easy for people to just keep saying climate change, but it's more than that. We don't do as many controlled burns as we used to, and those would create fire breaks and would stop the spread. That's political, so I won't get to it, but we've always had fires here, but the problem is worse now. For newcomers to the region, the threat of wildfires can be an unexpected reality, and one of the things that it really affects is the cost of insurance, if you can get insurance in some of the areas. We actually just recently did a purchase for one of my clients, and we looked at the insurance price between the two homes, and one had to be on what's called the California Fair Plan, which is a state program that gets some insurance for the fire areas, and the other house could take a normal insurance, and you were talking many thousands of dollars difference between the cost of the insurance for the two properties. You're talking a month or two of mortgage payment between the two homes. So those are something you have to take into consideration, especially if you're looking in the high fire risk areas. Number 9, earthquakes. Earthquake anxiety is a constant in LA. The city sits by the San Andreas Fault and the Inglewood-Newport Fault and a few others. And while the major quakes are pretty rare, in fact, the largest big one, decent sized one, was back in 1994, there's still smaller ones that happen often enough to keep the apprehension alive. Though those of us who have lived here all of our lives tend to say, don't even mention it if it's under a 5.0 on the Richter scale. Residents are encouraged to prepare for the big one, though, and that is, the big earthquake that could cause widespread damage. The 1994 Northridge quake, the Sylmar quake in 1971. We had big quakes, and they caused massive damage, and we haven't had one in a while, so you wonder when that next one may hit. It could happen at any time. And for anybody who's new to LA, earthquakes are pretty scary the first time you feel one, especially from an area if you don't have any kind of seismic activity. Even though modern buildings are designed to be earthquake resistant, older structures and homes might not be safe, and that can lead to concerns about personal safety and property damage. The unpredictability of earthquakes is what makes them so stressful. There's no warning like there are with tornadoes. That becomes a key part of planning in life in LA. Number 10, parking difficulties. Well, parking in LA is horrible. Especially in densely populated parts or popular areas like downtown or any of the business and tourist districts or the neighborhoods around the beaches. Street parking can be a huge pain with complex rules and expensive meters and definitely not enough spots. I challenge you to make sense of some of the parking signs in some areas. In some neighborhoods, residents spend more time circling for a parking space than they do on their actual drive. Additionally, parking structures can be expensive, and the cost of parking tickets can add up really quickly for those who aren't familiar with the local regulations, and they are different from city to city and area to area. When people first arrive here, trying to navigate LA's parking situation can be a really annoying surprise. And even people who've lived here for years can find that one of the worst parts of living in the city is dealing with parking. Now, while owning a car is practically a necessity here, it comes with the additional stress of finding parking and dealing with all the costs and challenges that come with it. So we've talked about some problems, but still millions of us stay because, realistically, even paradise has its problems. Where else can you go to the beach in the morning and go skiing in the afternoon? And yes, most of us have tried to do that when we were young. And what other area has so much natural beauty and so much to do and the great year-round weather so that you can get out and enjoy all these things? So we stay, and the list that's scrolling by is a lot longer, obviously, than the list of things that are wrong. And that's just a few hundred to get started. So stay tuned. We'll get to those ones.
So you can't